This administration is profoundly evil in ways that are difficult for Americans to comprehend. We have reached a stage of illegality, immorality, and depravity in a federal administration that no one could have ever thought possible.
Okay, pause. Did you just hear that? George Conway, a conservative lawyer married to Trump's former mouthpiece Kellyanne, just called Trump's administration profoundly evil. That's not some spicy Twitter take. That's a man who used to eat dinner with the people he's now comparing to political demons. My God. And if you thought the Trump era had already peaked in sheer ridiculousness, think again, because what you're about to witness isn't just political theater. It's George Conway, a man with insider credentials and a grudge, going full roast master on live TV.
There was a bipartisan immigration bill that was going to try to fix some of this stuff. And Trump didn't want to fix it. He made the House vote against it because he doesn't want a rational system. He wanted the system to fail. So they don't want law.
Ooh. That's not a hot take, that's a nuclear meltdown. Conway just said Trump sabotaged immigration reform on purpose, not because of incompetence, because chaos is the game plan. George isn't playing politics, he's holding the receipts. This isn't some dude ranting online. This is a highly respected attorney who's been lurking behind the scenes for years, finally snapping like, nope, I'm done. It's like watching a lawyer do stand-up, except instead of punchlines, it's devastating truths. And let's be real, when Kellyanne's husband is the one peeling back the curtain and exposing the rot, you know the drama's just getting started. Ready for the next clip? Oh, it gets better.
They can, they have to try sometimes because they're out there to remedy violations of the laws and the Constitution. But at the end of the day, the courts you can't have 600 plus federal judges trying to run the federal government through litigation when the president is just refusing to do his job, and not only refusing to do his job, basically saying, F you to the duties that I have. The correct solution, and this is what made JV laugh, and you guys put it up on the internet, what JV laughing at me, the correct solution that the framers intended was impeachment and removal.
Okay, pause again. That wasn't just a soundbite, that was a constitutional intervention. George Conway basically said, hey, the courts can't babysit a rogue president 24/7. That's not how democracy works. And Trump isn't just skipping out on the job. He's flipping the entire system the bird and yelling, do something. And George is standing there like, you know what the founding fathers said to do when the president goes full dictator mode? Impeach, remove, goodbye. Cue the laugh track because apparently JV thought that was hilarious. But George, he's dead serious. And just when you think he's done dragging Mr. Comb over in chief.
1980 to 2018, okay? I don't want to see a Republican Party led by a fascist, but he is a fascist. He cannot help but be a fascist. His personality disorders make him a fascist. He does not care about anyone else. He does not care.
There, he said it. The F word. Not that one. The other one. Fascist. And George doesn't hedge. He doesn't do the well technically thing. He says Trump is a fascist not because it's a political buzzword, but because his entire personality screams authoritarian drama queen in a red tie. And here's what makes this hit different. George Conway isn't screaming into a void like the rest of us. He's got the legal background, the proximity, and the balls to say out loud what so many spineless politicians won't even whisper in private. He's not trying to be poetic, he's just telling the truth. And Trump's probably somewhere rage tweeting from his golden toilet about how George is jealous or sad or whatever the insult generator spits out next. But don't get too comfortable. We're not even close to the best part.
He can't help himself but emotionally react to things. One of the things that he's a narcissistic sociopath. That's the thing everyone has to kind of get used to. It's the reason why you cannot normalize him. You cannot treat him like a normal human being because he's not. He is.
And there it is, the psychological mic drop. George Conway just diagnosed Trump like a reality show therapist who's finally done pretending the guy in the White House isn't completely off the rails. A narcissistic sociopath. I mean, tell us how you really feel, George. Because let's be honest, Trump's biggest national security threat might be his fragile ego. This is a man who once rage tweeted at 3 a.m. during an international crisis. The planet was on fire, and Trump was out here typing in all caps like a teenager fighting with his ex, and remember that I alone can fix it speech? Yeah, that wasn't leadership. That was a cry for help dressed in fascist cosplay. Conway, with his signature deadpan sarcasm, called out what we've all been thinking. Trump governs like he's hosting an episode of The Apprentice Apocalypse Edition. You can't normalize this guy. You can't pretend this is fine, because it's not.
He does not care about justice. He does not care about right and wrong. He's a criminal. He's a convicted criminal, 34 counts. He stands charged with many other counts on which I really don't think he has.
Boom. George isn't pulling punches. He's body slamming Trump with the truth. This isn't political banter anymore. Trump isn't just bad at his job. He's a convicted criminal. 34 counts. That's not a rap sheet. That's a full Netflix docuseries waiting to happen. And there's more charges on deck. George basically said Trump treats justice like a buffet. Skip the accountability, pile on the lies. But wait, Trump still claims he saved America. Let's take a quick look at how that's going. Remember those genius economic policies? The ones that were going to make America rich again? Turns out they mostly made everything more expensive. Congrats! Thanks to Trump's brilliant trade wars, we now pay more for toilet paper, washing machines, and pretty much anything made outside Mar-a-Lago. And let's not forget his deep love for the military. You know, the military he avoided serving in because of his mysterious bone spurs, which apparently never stopped him from golfing 24/7s. Oh, and the Space Force. Space Force. Because when you're done burning democracy to the ground, why not take your mess to the moon? It's like giving a toddler a rocket launcher and saying, "Go wild, champ." And believe it or not, George Conway still isn't done.
What do you know about the OPM and OMB, and they're just like offering people, not buyouts. Buyouts is a misnomer. They're basically just like, we're going to pay.
I mean, they're kind of, it's a combination of Project 2025 and shit coming out of Elon Musk's ass.
Excuse me? Did George Conway just say Trump's policies are coming out of Elon Musk's, well, let's say brainstem? Yes. Yes, he did. And honestly, he might be onto something. Project 2025 is already sounding like a bad sci-fi sequel, and now George is comparing it to a bizarre Elon fever dream. Picture that, the next presidential transition being cooked up in the same place as self-driving car lawsuits and cage matches with Zuckerberg. What could possibly go wrong? But let's not get distracted. The spotlight here is still very much on George I'm done pretending Conway. This wasn't your usual political mudfight with people shouting into the void. No. George came in like a Michelin-starred chef of shade. Every word, every insult, perfectly measured. He didn't need to scream. He just smirked and sliced.
It was the psychopath because I thought he couldn't win. I just thought that, if all of us pitched in, things would turn out just right. Now, the problem is, he's back.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced that even if the American people get their act together on him, and they're starting to realize that. I mean, there was this great article, I hate to say great article in Axios, but it was actually a great article.
The psychopath. That's George's new term for the MAGA machine. And honestly, kind of brilliant. It's like Super PAC meets straitjacket. He's clearly frustrated. This is a guy who thought America had learned its lesson in 2020. That maybe, just maybe, we wouldn't fall for the same Orange Carnival Barker again. But Trump's back, baby, and this time he's louder, weirder, and somehow even more detached from reality. George isn't yelling about policy failures or embarrassing scandals, though there are plenty to choose from. No, he's going for the jugular. Trump isn't just unqualified, he's mentally, emotionally, and functionally incapable of leadership. He's not a serious adult making tough calls. He's a guy playing make-believe in a power suit, turning every briefing into a circus and every crisis into a performance. We're not talking about politics anymore. We're talking about a man who can't lead because he doesn't even know what leadership is, and somehow the circus keeps going.
Far along there, and then I just started having this queasy feeling like I don't really want to work in this administration because I was just watching the shit show that was going on with the Russia thing, with the firing of Comey and the guy, it's just like the administration shut it.
Let's talk about that queasy feeling George Conway mentioned. Because when a high-powered conservative lawyer starts feeling physically ill just watching the Trump show trademark unfold, you know it's not your average workplace drama. This wasn't The West Wing. It was Veep meets cops. worse, with Trump hurling ketchup at walls and firing FBI directors like he's canceling bad TV pilots. George saw the chaos and noped out. And honestly, same. What George Conway managed to do so brilliantly and so calmly was slice through all the noise, the MAGA flags, the cult vibes, the incoherent press conferences, and what he uncovered was brutal. Trump isn't just unqualified, he's dangerous. This wasn't just a takedown, it was an exorcism in lawyer speak. George made it painfully clear. Trump's rise had nothing to do with merit or leadership or even basic human decency. It's all been smoke, mirrors, and one man's tireless obsession with convincing the world he's a genius, while proving the exact opposite every time he opens his mouth. He's like a used car salesman who accidentally got elected president and just kept doubling down.
He is a bad man. And why all of you out there seem to want to excuse him and pretend that reality is something other than what it is and what you want it to be is the problem. And I don't say that you're garbage because of that. I think you need to look in the mirror someday and start thinking about, is this man the man you want your children or your grandchildren to emulate?
There it is. The moment George stops talking about Trump and starts talking to the people still supporting him. It's a gut punch dressed as a plea. Is this really who you want your grandkids to look up to? The bankrupt casino mogul who paid hush money to a peace star and tried to overthrow the government? That guy? And that's the kicker. Because the punchline that used to be funny, it's not landing anymore. Trump's whole political shtick, the rallies, the nicknames, the gold-plated delusions, it's starting to fall apart. The script he's been reading from was written by his ego and edited by sycophants, but even the crowd is getting tired of the same act, just with worse lighting and more indictments. You peel back the layers of America First and Law and Order, and what do you get? A chaotic mess of paranoia, vendettas, and outright lies. But his base, they just keep clapping, like it's a magic trick that'll work one more time. Here's the truth, Trump will say anything to stay relevant. He'll betray friends, torch allies, and scream fake news at basic reality. He's not a leader, he's a wrecking ball that got lost and started calling himself president. But don't blink, because just when you think this circus has peaked, Trump somehow finds a way to make it even more unbelievable. And what's next? Oh, it's just crazy.
He's a psychopath, and even at his mental best, at his most acute mental state, he's bad guy. He's basically represents all that is evil, as reflected in psychiatric.
Phew, George Conway didn't just light the match, he torched the whole circus tent. This is no longer a political takedown, it's a straight up psychological dissection. Conway flat out said Trump represents all that is evil, and honestly, it tracks. We're talking about a man so pathologically self-absorbed, he'd probably shove a baby aside for a better camera angle. Let's face it, Trump is the human version of a punchline that's been told one too many times. At first it was shocking, then it was tragic, now it's just exhausting. The MAGA faithful might still be laughing, but only because the reality is too bleak to confront. This isn't comedy anymore, it's denial wrapped in a red hat. His whole narrative, a never-ending string of contradictions. The law and order guy inciting riots, the anti-elite billionaire who literally gold-plated his toilet, the self-declared stable genius who can't spell basic words on Twitter, and yet, somehow, he still sees himself as a once-in-a-generation leader. Spoiler, the only thing once in a generation about Trump is how catastrophically unfit he is to lead anything more complicated than a reality show. He spent decades slapping his name on anything that stood still long enough. Buildings, stakes, universities, you name it. All just to prove he's the alpha, even though it screams deep unresolved insecurity. And let's not forget the constant Twitter meltdowns. If he'd channeled even a fraction of that energy into, I don't know, doing the job, maybe America wouldn't be trying to claw its way out of this mess.
I think everybody overthinks this guy. There's no strategy. There is no thought. And the brand is just him. He lives in this world where there's just him. Okay?
But it's not just him, George. It's a hell of a lot of people out there who've gotten sucked up into this thing and that are perpetuating
I agree with
that brand.
I'm talking about in his mind.
Okay.
None of us matter. Those people don't matter. They're not real people. He doesn't care what happens to them. If they show him adulation and they do what his bidding, that's good. If they don't do his bidding, he will destroy them. He will discard them. None of us, in his mind, okay, he's someone, as a man with no empathy, a man with no conscience. It's just him.
Let that one sink in. In Trump's universe, there's only Trump. The rest of us, NPCs in his deranged video game. There's no grand plan, no secret genius, no 4D chess. Just a guy winging it, one grudge tweet at a time, while the country bears the cost. Loyalty to him is like feeding a wild animal. Do it once and you're part of the show. Stop in your lunch, and Conway drives it home. Trump has zero empathy, zero conscience. The man will turn on anyone, ally, friend, or fan, the second they stop fueling his ego. He doesn't care about his base. He cares about the applause. If you boo, you're out. And here's the worst part. Trump isn't about solving problems. He's about performing them. From the beginning, it's been all spectacle, say something outrageous, break something important, then blame literally anyone else. The media, the Democrats, windmills, probably George Conway. It never ends. He doesn't lead, he deflects. He doesn't reflect, he projects. And at the core of it all, a man so deeply unaware of the damage he's done and continues to do that he actually believes he's the hero of this story. But here's the truth. This story, it's a cautionary tale. And Trump, he's the villain who still thinks he's the star. Wait until you see what George hits him with next. It's the final blow.
Psychopathocracy.
Yeah, rolls off the tongue. I can see how this could be really
what
catch
it
fire.
is if you take all the characteristics that I was talking about last year, about psychopaths, malignant narcissists, narcissistic sociopaths, whatever phrase you want to use to describe them, because all of those phrases are like overlapping circles in a Venn diagram. You have a government that is psychopathic because it is being run by psychopaths for psychopathic ends. And psychopaths seek destruction. This is what they are seeking.
And there it is. George Conway just invented a new political genre, psychopathocracy. Sounds like a dystopian sci-fi movie, right? Nope. It's just the Trump administration, folks, because when you line up all the traits, malignant narcissism, sociopathy, lack of empathy, a thirst for destruction, what do you get? A government run by people who genuinely don't care if they set the entire house on fire, as long as they get to light the match. George isn't ranting. He's diagnosing a disease. And here's the real kicker. Despite all of this, the indictments, the failures, the public disasters, Trump still thinks he's the victim. He's convinced the system is rigged, the media is out to get him, and that he alone is the misunderstood hero of this American tragedy. But the truth, the call is coming from inside the house. Trump has been sabotaging himself from day one. The man's worst enemy has always been staring back at him from his gold-plated mirror, and George Conway, calm, collected, absolutely surgical, held that mirror up for the world to see. It's Shakespearean, really. The guy who built his brand on humiliating others is now caught in the ultimate self-own. And don't worry, Don, George is just here to help you process that L. Because unlike the rage tweeters and chaos peddlers, Conway didn't need to scream. He didn't need to throw ketchup at the wall. He simply told the truth and let Trump's entire legacy collapse under its own weight.
We are on the edge of a dark precipice where the rule of law doesn't exist, at least at the federal level. I mean, we're talking about psychopaths here. We're talking about sociopaths here. We're talking about people with no morals, no conscience, no nothing.
You want to talk about apocalyptic vibes? George isn't just warning us, he's sounding the alarm. He's painting a picture of a federal government hijacked by people who see the law as optional and morality as a weakness. This isn't hyperbole, it's not a hot take, it's a red flag wrapped in a legal brief. And here's the savage part. George didn't need drama to make his point. No caps lock, no conspiracy theories, just a cold, hard reality check that hits harder than 1,000 screaming pundits.
He is the definition. If there is a diagnosis for evil, it is that of Donald Trump. He is a malignant narcissist. That is a phrase that was coined by a psychologist named Erich Fromm. I think it was in the 1950s. And what Erich Fromm was trying to do was he was trying to explain the psychological makeup of essentially the world's worst people, the Hitler, the Stalins. And he did. He basically just said the primary traits that these people have are extreme pathological narcissism. It's all about.
That's not just an insult. That's a historical comparison. George is saying Trump fits the psychological profile of the worst leaders in history. And yeah, that's a heavy statement, but coming from a top-tier conservative legal mind, it's not made lightly. So here we are. George Conway didn't just roast Donald Trump, he exposed him, laid bare the fragile ego, the chaos addiction, the dangerous delusion. Trump's entire political career has been one long exercise in ego maintenance. And George just walked in, turned off the spotlight, and said, "Show's over." And while Trump will almost certainly rage post about this, call Conway a loser, a traitor, maybe even invent a nickname or two, none of it will matter, because now the truth is out there. And the man who thought he could never be held accountable just got completely dismantled by George Conway, with nothing but logic, receipts, and a voice that never had to rise above a whisper. Want to see what Trump does next? Oh, you won't believe it. Click the next video.